So I am doing my recording on a website called Explore Learning, and the specific feature or technology tool is Gizmos. And it is currently being used a lot with the virtual setting, especially in the science classroom, because you can do some guided labs. So when you set up an account, it's free to set up an account. A lot of schools have like memberships to it. So like if your school your student teaching at was like willing to share that membership with you, you'll have like complete access. But so once you start out, you sign up, it'll ask you if you're a teacher, a parent, or a student, and you can select a district that you're working in, and the specific school building. Then it'll ask you subjects that you're interested in or are teaching, and then you'll get brought to this page right here. I just set up another account. You can get a tutorial right on the website, which is super helpful. I did that the first time to kind of get the hang of what I was doing. So once you start a page, you will be able to add a class. And this class you can name it, and then you'll put like a short tab, like if there's 4 sections of your science class and you want to name one in specific, you can name it by a room number, or you could name it by whatever, if they have like a section name or a team name. So once you add a class, each class can have up to 40 students, and you can have up to 6 classes. You can easily assign a Gizmos to them. So say I want them to learn about plate tectonics. You can add this to a class, and now it's like assigned to them. Or you can just launch the Gizmo if you're doing it in class and work through it with them. But if you'd like them to do that as part of their online assignment for the day, you would add it to their class, and then in Google Classroom or whatever format you use, you could put the link, and that would take them straight there. So once you get to the Gizmos, there's a lot of materials that are actually included with it. So besides launching the Gizmos itself, it will take you to a screen like this, and then you can have the activity be pretty exploratory for your students, such as not having them turn on the labels, and then they can just play around with what's happening at these different ones. This is all, if you're on a computer, you can just click. If you're on a touchscreen like an iPad, you can just click everything. Or you can give them the exploration sheet, which is super helpful. It has everything you would really need for a lesson, so this is why it could be very useful in a virtual lesson. You can, I believe there's a Microsoft Word option for this, or yes, there's a Microsoft Word or a Google Doc form. If you would like students to just print it off and write in it, then maybe a PDF is best. But if you are sharing it and doing the Gizmos as a group, the Google Doc might be best. But what I really like about these handouts that go with it, it really kind of follows through what an inquiry lesson would look like. It puts all the vocabulary right on the top, and then it walks through the prior knowledge. And then it kind of it introduces students to how to use different features. Like for this one in specific, you can show the labels of the Earth. You can get the boundaries labeled. And then it takes you through a set of activities. So in this one, it shows different plates sliding. And then it asks you to draw arrows on a picture. You can look at locations on a map. And so you could say that you wanted one group to do one activity. If you broke the class into 4 groups, they could all do one activity. And then it doesn't, in the free version, it does not give you the answers to the exploration sheet. But if you go through it as a teacher and do it yourself, you don't really need the answers. There's also assessment questions that go with each Gizmos. And you could copy and paste those and put them into a Google Doc, and it could be an exit slip for the end of the day, or students can go right through. And this, once students answer this, if they get it right or wrong, and they hit check answer at the bottom, then they're given explanations for why their answer was right or wrong, which I think is kind of really helpful. And with the free version, you can't add anything to the lesson or recommend the lesson, but you are able to share the lesson, which is super helpful. You can, if you're in like a Facebook group with teachers, you can put it on there and say, this was super helpful, I liked this, I didn't like this. And another thing I found really helpful when using this for a lesson was the teacher guide. It gives you learning objectives. It really can show exactly how it should be aligning with your standards. It lays out the vocabulary. It gives an exact overview of how this was designed to work. You don't necessarily have to use it that way, but this is how the writers have designed it. They gave a suggested sequence. Here's, you can do it as stations. Here's what you should do before you do the gizmo. Here's what you should do during the gizmos. And then it gives you tons of discussion questions for afterwards. So if you are short on time, these discussion questions could become an extension of the activity and be done as homework. You could be putting students in breakout rooms if you're on Zoom or in Google Classroom. And then there's also a follow-up activity that could be the following day, or if this could be a modification as an extension to challenge students a little bit more who may have already gone through the tectonic plates. And then it gives you like scientific background, and then it gives you all the resources that were used, which is really helpful as well. And then there's a vocabulary sheet. So if you are going through and teaching vocabulary to your students and you want them to have a running list, you could print these out and give them to them. You could give this to them on Google Classroom and tell them that they need to add these words with definitions into their science notebook, or however you incorporate vocabulary into your classroom. I just really like that they put them all in one place, and any of the vocabulary that's used in the lesson is all right there. And I really actually do like the definitions. They're pretty scientific and helpful. So that's kind of like what one Gizmos lesson would look like. It's kind of like a PhET simulation when you can manipulate it. When you launch it, you can click on the different boundaries. You can turn in feedback. Which is super helpful if you're not liking how one feature works. They love to take your feedback and you get immediate response. And then here is where, if you're a member, you can submit all these different other resources that can be free and downloaded. So another one, it organizes them. You can look them up however. But so if I wanted to find one for math, these are like all the ones that I had clicked on as potentially teaching. So if I wanted one for 3 through 5 geometry, congruence and symmetry, there's tons of fun activities. So let's say balancing blocks. I think something like this is super great, especially during COVID when students can't touch the same materials and share materials, even if they are in a hybrid setting or full in person. And then if they're online, this is still, they're able to manipulate things and make make inferences and do some really inquiry-based learning, even in the math classroom. And still, once again, all those things are there. There's an assessment question, there's an exploration sheet, there's a teacher guide. So it's the same thing every time. There's vocabulary, there's questions, there's a warm-up, and then it goes into the activities. So these student exploration packets, you could pick and choose to only ask some questions. You could pick and choose and make that their lab manual essentially. So they could have at the end of the year a bunch of Gizmos packets, and these could be the equivalent of a lab manual. Let's look at one more. You can also look them up by standard, which I find very cool. I'm going to look at Ohio standards, and I'm going to look at science, 6th grade science. And it gives you different gizmos for every science level. Let's look at measuring motion. It gives you the standard and all the different ones. So you can, as soon as you click on it, you can learn more about it, you can launch it, or you can add it to your class. Same thing here. Assessment questions, the materials, the vocabulary, the teacher's guide. Every Gizmos is a little different. They all look different. And this one, they're able to record themselves doing something and then watch it, which is super awesome. So here, if you go to your classes, you can, once you would come to like your class name that had all your students in it, and then you can assign some to the class through this way, or if you know exactly what you're looking for. If you need to add a student, you have an enrollment code as well.